It's a privilege for me to introduce our speaker today, and I presume the reason I was asked is because Reed and I have served together on the City Council for the last 8 years. A little bit of background. Reed is what might very truly be described as a hometown mayor. He was educated locally, starting at Lincoln Elementary School, Kennedy Junior High, Homestead High, De Anza, and got his degree at San Jose State University. He is a successfully self-employed State Farm insurance agent for these past 13 years. He's been elected 3 times to the City Council, and this is now his 3rd term as mayor of the city, which is a record in both instances. He has been married since he was last mayor. He is very proud of a couple of things that have happened in the city and takes great pride in the new housing that's been provided for the physically limited residents and for bringing to Cupertino its first hotel convention complex, which we're really looking forward to seeing. It's a distinct privilege to introduce to you Mayor Reed Sparks, and I'm interested too in learning about what the state of the city is.
I was starting to clap for myself. That's a little ridiculous. I started preparing for this about 3 weeks ago, and I was thinking as I started to write my speech that I kind of felt like these 3 old wise men, and they're in the desert, and they're going to this nice oasis, spending the night, and they've got their little beds out there, and this voice comes over and says, pick up the little pebbles around you, and then tomorrow you'll have some feeling of good and a feeling of sadness. And so they went and picked the pebbles around them. If somebody out in the desert talked to you, of course you do that. And the next morning, lo and behold, the feeling of good was the little pebbles were diamonds. And of course the sadness was that they didn't put more pebbles in their pockets. And going through my speech, when I arrived on the City Council at the ripe old age of 22 years of age, of course I was the brightest, smartest thing in the world. At least that's what I thought. And lo and behold, 13 years later, I found out that really I wasn't that terribly smart. But a little few of the things that have happened in the city, I just kind of, first speech I gave as mayor when I was 1975, and the second one 1980. 30? Oh my God, that's ancient history. And this last one, first speech I gave, I started out at Lincoln, and then I went to Monte Vista, which was a new elementary school, and then went to Kennedy Junior High, which was a new elementary school, and then went to De Anza College and went on to San Jose State. And one of the things that the founding fathers of the city, back 33 years ago, the reason the city was formed was to provide a strong tax base for the schools of Cupertino. And if we notice, when I got on the City Council, the assessed value was $72 million, and now it's $2.6 billion. It's amazing that we don't have plenty of money for our schools. It's fascinating when you think that the purchasing power, right, 1967 was $18,000 per household in Cupertino. Today you'd have to make $87,000 to get that same purchasing power. When you go into the price of a house, when I got on the City Council, you could buy the top of the line Cupertino house was $28,000 of value, and today that new house or used house would cost a little over $350,000. Okay. When the new house today being built in Cupertino is between $280,000 and $500,000, and that's on a 6,000 to 7,500 square foot lot. So you can see the dramatic changes we've had in the last 13 years. Family income. Next I'd like to go on, which is kind of fascinating. It's one of those, when I got on the City Council in 1972, our number one employer in Cupertino, private employer, was Hewlett & Packard, and they had about 1,000 employees. Okay, our number 2 employer was called Information Storage Systems. It's one of those, where are they now stories, right? They had about 1,000 employees, and of course they went on to become Timeshare, then they went on to become McDonnell Douglas, and now a few of them are left in Cupertino, but not a whole lot. Our number 3 employer was Kaiser Cement, and they had 400 employees, and our number 4 employer was Measurex. And this was in 1972, which again, we're not, it's not like it's a tremendous amount of years ago, it's only 12, right? Today, Hewlett & Packard has roughly 5,000 employees in Cupertino. They're still our #1 employer. Our #2 employer is Apple Computers, and they have 3,000 employees. Started by a few of my friends at Homestead High School, I may add. I should have got to know them better, right? See, that's the time. When I was taking pole vaulting 1 with Mr. Wozniak, I should have said, "Gee, I'll carry your pole." I didn't do that, is it? So that didn't happen. But, see if that's, again, I go back and do the diamonds. Tandem, of course, is another one of our major employers. And then we have MeasureX, again, which stayed #4, but they added about, 1,500 employees. And we have Motorola. It's down there. It's kind of shrinking right now, but hopefully it'll come back. And then we got the new kid in the town, right? It's been here a huge 4.5 months now. I'm missing one here, Fairchild. They're somewhere in there, but I couldn't get any good numbers. But it's called Digital. They've now showed up in town. And when Digital shows up, it takes them about 6 weeks to bring in 1,500, So for the users that don't know, it's the second biggest computer employer in the world. And they've now come into Cupertino. So with the growth of the new companies, with the growth of housing in our community, you can see that competition today is even keener than it was 12 years ago when I arrived on the City Council. The same is true for commercial in Cupertino. The year before I was on the council, which is amazing, Gemco, lovely Gemco, right? That was our new commercial project in Cupertino. And now, of course, Gemco is gone. And then 2 years later, the first time I was mayor of Cupertino, I gave a speech to at that time, the Rotary, and we talked about the new commercial future of Cupertino. And the issue then, of course, was Valco, the regional shopping center. And it was the wisdom of the council at that time that we put through Valco Regional Shopping Center, and that's one of the major pluses for the city as far as our city manager would say, sales tax. So from a standpoint of growth to the city, the regional shopping center has meant a lot to the city of Cupertino. Also with the commercial hub, Valco, have been many other smaller commercial throughout the city, and that has helped the environment of the city to go out and purchase. A lot of people don't. What we do is we get the money into our coffers, and then we try to make a better community in the city of Cupertino, and one is the purchasing of parkland. The first time I was mayor in 1975, we were very fortunate to pick up 12 acres right next to City Hall, and we paid a huge amount of money. We paid $68,000 an acre for that land. And then about 3 years later, we went out and picked up about 13 acres right by Memorial Park, and we paid about $75,000 for the land. Today, that same land is, depending who you talk to, $400,000 to $600,000 an acre. So the land that we picked up in the last 12 years is probably going to be most of the land we're going to have for the next 20 and 30 years. And this is, again, one of the problems of our area. Because of the costs rising, it gives government less and less things to do. Back in education, I just wanted to focus on that one more time. When I arrived at the City Council, which was 72, the mean salary of a teacher was $8,000 a year. I mean, the starting salary was $8,000. The maximum salary with 36 years of teaching was $15,000. Today it's $22,000 and it's $42,000. Purchasing power-wise, you remember what I said, $18,000 and now you need $87,000. It's probably dropped about 30% in purchasing power. Their ability to purchase as much today as they did 12 years ago. Today in Oakdale, California, and we all know where lovely Oakdale is, right? That's outside of Stockton, between Stockton and Modesto. Starting salary for a teacher is $17,500, and the max with 36 years is about $38,000. So you can see that down the line in the next 8 and 10 years, we're going to have to compete for new teachers, which a lot of people, the mean age today in the Cupertino School District, and I'll just use them as an example, is 52. That's the mean age today. So within the next 10 years, we're going to have to compete for new, young teachers, and they're not going to have any place to live in Cupertino because, needless to say, they can't afford a $200,000 or $300,000 house. So that gets to my next thing is we need, hopefully transportation and roads, and we've been working on that now in Cupertino for about 12 years. We've been working on the road system within the city. We're just putting out another $3-4 million here improving the streets that we have, and the last 10 years we've been working on getting 85 in. And we've been, myself and fellow council members, we've been on almost 14 commissions now trying to get 85 in. And it's slowly but surely coming. And hopefully in '91 we'll see some asphalt in Cupertino. That's kind of my figure. And then by 1995 we'll see a freeway throughout the 85 corridor. And the reason it's so important is going back to those teachers that we're going to need. They're going to have to live in the Almaden Valley, and they're going to have to commute here because that's just the only place they can find affordable housing. So this whole puzzle has to go together, the sense of Cupertino, of Santa Clara County, and of outside the counties to form a transportation system to keep the growth in Cupertino going. And by growth, I mean that the companies we have to be able to expand in Cupertino, or I mentioned the newspaper a couple days ago, they can go someplace else. And if you lose companies, and that's the hardest thing, is to get new companies to replace it. And right now in Cupertino, we're very secure because we have 5 or 6 good major companies, and we also have new major companies coming in. I think it's important we keep those so we can keep our tax base strong and so we can keep a growing economy. On the area of commercial, and this is just kind of in the early 60s and late 60s, early 70s when I arrived on the council, most of the commercial property was owned by local people, meaning people that lived in Santa Clara County or, in a sense, California. Today, because of this urban basin, we call this the Chinese, the Hong Kong, Korea, Australia, America, we're becoming this Asian basin. More and more of our commercial property is being owned by literally people outside of the United States of America. So I think it's important that we get to know our fellow friends across the seas because we're having more and more of an interrelationship. Fascinating, up until 1980, and I don't know why this is exactly. A lot of people think it's because of satellite communication today. They call them money centers of the world, and what that pretty well means is that's where the money flows in and flows out of. And of course, Switzerland has always been a money center of the world because of gold and certain diamonds and all these things. And next you had New York, and we had London, and we had Hong Kong. And this was up until 1980. And then about 1980, all of a sudden there's been this dramatic shift of literally billions and billions of dollars, and it's gone to Switzerland, and it's gone to Hong Kong. Those are still 2 money centers, and it's this west coast we call Orange County, LA County, and San Francisco. We've literally replaced New York and England as money centers of the world. And with this influx of money, with this influx of this Asian basin, and just a quick one today in the paper, I don't know if you saw it, but Japan last year had $40 billion worth of imports to the United States, to California. And that's expected to go to $100 billion by the year 2000. So just with little Japan, and we've got little, we got these other Asian countries, we're having this influx of more and more of literally people throughout this area purchasing property in our city, and of course we need to have better contacts with them. And so in my last lovely 6 months or 8 months as mayor of Cupertino, I'm going to try to work, one, on trying to get more contacts with these property owners that are literally living throughout Australia and Hong Kong and these areas. I think it's important from a city standpoint that we make these contacts because I think, like I say, in the years to come, it's going to be more of an influence on the city of Cupertino. And there are the 3 other areas I like to work on. One is our community center, and that goes back to this revenue source. We have sales tax, we have hotel tax, and we're taking that money, and now we'll be building a community center in the city of Cupertino, hopefully in the next 16 months. And that will provide recreational opportunities for everyone in the city of Cupertino. Another area that I think it's important that we work on, of course, is keep working on trying to get and keep pushing for 85. And we will be doing that. I think the council is committed to that. The staff's committed to that. And within the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see some asphalt. So I've taken a huge 17 minutes, and I suppose they allotted me 20 minutes, so I didn't want to take anything else. And that's pretty well the end of my speech for the state of the city. I just say, last but not least, that we're doing strong, we're doing well, and I think we're going to move forward. And now I've allotted 15 minutes for any questions. Is there any questions at all anybody has they want to ask the mayor? And if we, yes, Ann.
Mr. Mayor, where is the city standing with the redevelopment? That was such a big item not so long ago. Is it in the back burner and it's going to pop up all of a sudden?
Yeah, what Ann wanted to know is where do we stand on redevelopment? And let me just give you a couple quick things here. What's happening in Santa Clara County is kind of a microcosm of what's happening really in this whole state of California or the area we're living in. And you're having cities of wealth and cities of less wealth, I suppose that's the easiest way to put it. And one area in California that a lot of cities have used to increase their infrastructures, i.e. downtown San Jose is a perfect example. It's called a redevelopment agency. Now, the intent of redevelopment agencies in the past were to take blight and to improve, do away with the blight and to build a new foundation for a city. Well, many cities, of course, didn't have the blight to start out with, but now are expanding their infrastructures by using redevelopment agencies. To compete in the marketplace, I think it's important that Cupertino do something like this. Anybody else have any questions? Yes?
Are you working with other cities on the transportation issue, especially public transportation, since it's kind of a regional?
Yeah, this is, I think, one of your biggest problems is you have many agencies that are working on transportation today. We have a thing called the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which does the whole Bay Area. We have a thing called the Santa Clara County Transportation Commission, which does pretty much Santa Clara County and works on public transportation. And now we have a new thing called the Santa Clara County Authority, which has been around about 2 years now, and they're pretty, it's specific. They're trying to improve our road system, which is one form of public transportation in Santa Clara County. And the statistic is pretty hard and fast, and everybody hates to, I've said this for the last 12 years. One is the most efficient form of transportation is 4 people in a Volkswagen. Okay, now that's been that way since 1972. 4 people in a Volkswagen, that's the most efficient form of transportation. Okay, the next, of course, is if you can fill a bus, you're going to get another efficient form of transportation. The problem is, I think the West Coast is pretty much locked into the car. And if you notice, our peak hours are getting longer and longer and longer, and the insides of cars are getting more TV sets and radios and earphones, and you notice what's happening. People are getting more accustomed to being in their cars, telephones. I mean, you can go on and on and on. So I think from a public transportation standpoint, if we improve our roads to the maximum, and then we have to look at other alternatives, and of course that's the bus systems we have in Santa Clara County, and we have heavy rail, which we might be able to get down to San Jose and Milpitas, and then we have the last is light rail. And those are all things that everybody's working on. But I think to answer your question, it's a big issue, and it's a hard issue.
Reed, Barbara mentioned in your introduction that you were very proud of the hotel that you brought here. And you mentioned the community center that will be built from the hotel tax.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all know that reservations are very, very competitive for hotels. So how would you see some of the hotel tax money being used to promote reservations in this area?
See, that's a good question. The question is, hotel tax, what do I see it being used for in the future, I suppose, more than anything else? I think, every year, councils, we get together and we have our budget process. And at that time, we decide where the money is going to go. And so from a mayor's standpoint, or from even council members, every year I'll decide where the money gets to go. And I'm pretty partial to parks and recreation and these types of things, but there's other services in the city, and so you just really have to do it on a need basis. I suppose that's what I'm saying. And I don't, right now I think our newest hotel in town, which is the Cupertino Inn, that's our only hotel in town, the Cupertino Inn, and that's where we make all of our money right now, the Cupertino Inn. That's pretty good, huh? That's supposed to be a pitch, everybody. I'm sorry, but for the cameras too. And when hopefully, we'll just have to see how they do in the marketplace, I think. And if for some reason they need to be pumped up, I'll be willing to look at that. I don't have any problem. Yes?
Yes, Reed. What are the prospects for new residential construction in and around Cupertino during the next year or so?
Yeah, there's for everybody that's well, the question is what new residential. And I feel myself, it's kind of sad that we can't provide a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square foot home for $200,000. But for some reason, we can't do that. The marketplace today has 3,600 square foot homes, 5 and 6 bedrooms, and they go for $425,000. And that's the marketplace. And I don't, that's just the way. Any new places right now, I know the Kaiser property, I think they're looking at trying to do something with their property. The church property, they're looking at doing something with their property. So you could see another 10,000 homes, I should say that, probably 5,000 houses in the next 20 years being built in the city. But most likely they're going to be at that higher end of $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. And those are going in 3 to 5 days. So they're out there being sold, which is, and the developer is has to go with the market. So I don't, from a city standpoint, I'd like to maybe try to get a little lower priced house, because I think you need a mix of population, and I really don't think we're getting the mix that we could if we had lower priced housing. But it's one of those, it's a tough nut. Yes?
I have a question. If you redevelop Rancho Rinconada, then you're essentially eliminating the lower end housing, and I wouldn't like to suggest
suggest that you want to keep light around for that purpose alone. But let's face it, that is where the entry-level housing is in this area. And if you redevelop it, then you're running counter to another objective, and that is to provide some type of housing for all income levels.
That's the Rancho Recanata, for what for anybody, of course, that's our lower end housing. That's about $140,000 now a unit, and those started out at $4,500. So it's amazing where they've gone in the last 15 years. Rancho has a certain problem, it's, sewage. I mean, they have a sewage problem. So in the sense of developing, just in Rancho's case, it would probably be improving the roads, improving the sewers, and not really messing with, in a sense, the houses. But there is some areas there you might be able to provide more housing. But the biggest problem Rancho has right now is just sewage capacity and things like this. Their sewers go the wrong way for everybody. They go up into the mountains instead of going down towards the rivers, which is a tough thing if you live in Rancho. Okay. Any more questions? Well, if not, I'd like to thank everybody, and we'll have a good year this year.